Hey everyone, here we are for Worthiness Matters, day number 21 of our 30-day workout series of joy-based spirituality. And so today I wanted to talk about who's on your dream team. Who's on your dream team? What kind of people do you have? Do you surround yourself with? What kind of people um, do you allow into your inner circle of support? Consuela was facing you earlier. I don't know what happened. There she is. So I want to talk about this from a worthiness standpoint. It's good to have the right people in your corner. It's important to have the right people in your corner, especially when it comes to the aspects of your life that have to do with who you are as a human being, your value as a human being, and how you perceive your future, how you go forward. And so I want to bring in some of the ideas from our practices that are foundational at joy based living so that you start seeing the other people in your life through this context, which is going to raise your standards, which is going to raise your taste. Do you ever like have a food that at one point you didn't like and then you came around to it, you grew to have taste around it? Children have limited taste buds compared to adults, and so they prefer spaghetti and hot dogs, which adults still like, I still like. But it took me a while to acquire a taste for sushi, and now I love sushi. But it took some people who had more of a joy around it and who knew how to enjoy it to help me have taste around that. And so you want to be surrounded by people who are taste makers in the various areas of your life that you want to enjoy or expand or bless the most. So I want you to think about the three wounds and the three healing fields that are seen in every person in every culture. You can find these three wounds and these three healing fields. And Mario Martinez put this together for psychological well-being. So the three wounds are shame, abandonment, and betrayal. You want to make sure that the people who surround you that are on in your inner circle, in your dream team, are people who, when they look at themselves in the mirror, they don't perpetuate the wounds of shame, abandonment, or betrayal. Because if they do, they're going to project that onto everyone else in their lives because it's how they see the world. So if they look in the mirror and it's not that they don't ever feel shame. I feel shame, and sometimes I betray myself and sometimes I abandon myself, but I practice the healing fields as much as I practice noticing if I'm inside of a wound. I also practice invoking the healing fields. And so looking in the mirror, practicing honor, commitment, and loyalty to the best of my ability is a practice of self love. You want the people who are surrounding you to be people who are doing that practice for themselves. I'm going to bring up one of our newer phrases, but it's sticking quite well actually. BEEE, belongingness through experiencing, embodiment, and emotional literacy. And I've thought about like the word experiencing, like it's kind of an extra word in there. It's extra letter in there in the BEEE acronym, but it's really important because what I've noticed is that when people are learning personal development, I've seen people in some personal development classes, and when people first join into joy based living, I have to like tell people immediately, like, this isn't school. Now I just tell them right off the bat. I really should put that in the next edition of the 12 practices. You're not here for school. You're here for a really great dinner conversation. And if they're like, oh my God, there's so much to read. Yeah. And imagine that each one of these readings is from a different author. Imagine them as a different person around a dinner table conversation. And unless you are like hyper introvert, most people can handle a dinner conversation with 3, 4, even 6 or 8 people. You don't talk to everyone, you talk to 2 or 3 at a time or 1 or 2 at a time. And then all of a sudden something catches your ear from across the table and you go, "Oh, that's interesting." And so you learn to develop a sense of interest rather than a sense of, "I'm going to get a good grade." Now, I was listening to one of my favorite authors today, named Seth Godin, and he talks a lot about business and marketing. And um, I have a beef with him right now about one of the words that he doesn't like, and it's a word that I love. And so I might as well tell you the beef because it's on my head and it's interrupting the thing I was going to tell you about what he was saying. Um, he really is like anti the word authenticity. Like, we don't need you to show up authentic. We need you to show up consistent at your best. You don't want your baker to just like show up rolling out of bed in the morning. You want them to, deliver the best food, or you don't want to go to a rock concert and the person's not prepared to deliver their best. And so I totally get his point. But so much of the depth of what he talks about, he says, "What do you really want out of your life?" And he talks about like looking from, you don't want to be a hack, you don't want to be like selling out and just doing like, he compares it to concert musicians who are playing their own replays of their own songs versus concert musicians who are just doing their own thing. People like the replays, people like the hits. And so only playing those is like being a sellout because you're doing it just for the business. Oh, I know what he was saying. He was talking about transaction. Um, that we okay, so let me finish that thought first. That on the other side, you have people who just, do their own authentic thing and not even consider the audience at all. It's kind of like Brene Brown talking about the two extremes of people who don't take in anybody's opinion versus people who take everybody's opinion, and neither way is good. You need to find the middle. To me, the middle is knowing what you really truly want and what you really feel like you can contribute, recognizing that there's needs out there. Like a friend of mine a few weeks ago said, "Man, you really love talking about feelings." I said, "Really? I actually don't. I just have to." Like if you're like in Ethiopia during a time when everybody was starving and you have food, you're going to want to share it. I mean, you're not going to just like hold it to yourself. And we live in a world that has been so anti feeling, that I see people suffering from that, and I have to bring it to the table, not just for them but for me, because if the people around me aren't well fed and well um nurtured in the area of feelings, they're going to be always hungry when they're around me. And so to be around people who are fed and nurtured in that way serves me as well. um what Seth Godin was talking about was that um we are taught in school. I love his school soapbox because it's as strong and as nasty as mine. That we are taught in school to be transaction oriented, and that it's the only place as children that we're, it's not the only place, but when we're like learning to ride a bike, we learn to ride a bike and then we keep riding the bike because it feels good. When we learn to swim, we learn to swim and then we keep swimming because it feels good. Nobody's giving us a grade for it. We're doing it because we're enjoying it, or whatever you enjoyed doing as a kid, right? So, this whole thing about transaction and looking to other people's approval and permission, to see if your contribution is okay, that's the F up in our culture. And that is the F up in how we're raising ourselves and raising our kids and being the worst examples for kids, because then we're teaching them, look to me for a permission and approval for what you like. What the heck? What in the heck? I know I'm being very clean language right now. I don't know why. I should be dropping a lot of F bombs, but I feel so strongly that I think my feelings are conveying enough. And so what you want to look at is, what do I really want? And so one of the things Mario Martinez taught me that I love is, when you're dealing in any relationship and you want reciprocity, You want to navigate between guilt and resentment. And so guilt is, uh, if you've given me so much more, and there's going to be a point where I'm like, I want to give back, but it's not like a transaction. It's like there's a felt sensation of like sort of an imbalance, unless I'm supposed to be in that receiving position in that relationship, or in a particular giving position in a particular relationship. And resentment is when you're in a relationship that's supposed to feel reciprocal, and you feel like you're the one giving, 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 and there's not like a recognition, or or what feels like a reciprocal sense of being within the relationship. Every relationship is different, so you have to look at each one. But we all know what that wonderful feeling of reciprocity is like. And so when it comes to your contribution and the team that you want around you, um, you don't want to be a hack, you don't want to be a sellout, but you also don't want to just be what Seth Godin calls a hobbyist, hacks and hobbyists, because a hack is just going to sell out. A hobbyist isn't going to usually uh, make enough money to keep whatever their contribution is going. Um, and so you can do things as a hobby, and that's fine. But just realize that if you want to make a consistent contribution, you're probably going to have to like bring commerce in at some point. Um, but like if you're retired and you're wanting to simply contribute by bringing more fun into your community or doing something like that, that's fine. It can be a hobby. But if you're looking for some kind of consistent contribution, you're probably going to have to commerce it somehow. How did I get on that? Because we're talking about having the team around you. What lives in the middle, where reciprocity lives in between, healthy reciprocity lives in between guilt and resentment. What lives in between hacking and hobbyist is actually what I think is authentic, joyful success. Is authentic, joyful um, contribution. And when you're inside of authentic, joyful contribution, it's because you've asked yourself the question, what is it I really want? Do I want to keep playing like the tunes I've always played? The Rolling Stones do that really well. Um, Grateful Dead was always like, you don't know what you're going to get because they're going to emerge as they go. And like these conversations here, they're emerging as I go, and the conversation just keeps evolving over years. And so you get to be part of the emerging conversation. And so that's my contribution. And there are some areas of joy based living where I'm very, very steady, very, very consistent with the same message and the same practices. But when it comes to the joy-based workouts and these series, which now we have a few hundred live streams, you get to see an emerging conversation. You get to experience a reliving of the different ideas. So, to complete the thought that I started with, we're going to come to a close with, I want you to imagine that your closest allies are people who practice honor, commitment, and loyalty on an embodied level, on experiential, embodied level, with emotional literacy. Um, I was talking about the word experiential, and then that's what got me on school. Is that it's really important that when you're thinking about the terms embodiment and emotional literacy, that you're not just thinking about those terms. You're actually experiencing, when you look in the mirror, honor on an embodied level, commitment on an embodied level, loyalty on an embodied level. And when you do that, that is what you will vibe. And when you vibe that, you will generously and organically and automatically offer it to others. And that is going to make your contribution even more stellar than you even imagined it ever would be. That is my wish for you. Thank you for letting me be on your team of well being. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.